Hi everyone, it's Lynnea here for InkOn3, and today I'm going to be creating a really simple but elegant styled Christmas card. I'm using the InkOn3 Poinsettia Stamp Set and the coordinating die set, along with some other supplies from my craft room to make this card. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to be stamping the poinsettia flowers, and there are 3 of them. I only have 2 on my MISTI right here because I overlooked the smallest one, but don't worry, I do go back and stamp that one as well. I'm using watermark embossing ink, and I am going to stamp these poinsettias all over this piece of red cardstock. I'm going to be stamping and heat embossing more than what I need, but I always tend to make extra rather than having to go back and stamp again. I forgot to use my anti-static powder tool when I first stamped, so the first flowers that I stamped initially aren't going to end up working out because the embossing powder is going to stick to areas of the cardstock where I don't want it to stick. But that's okay. Like I said, I stamped extra. Now I'm going over with some Arctic White ultrafine embossing powder, and I'm just sprinkling that on, and then I'll grab my heat tool and heat set these poinsettias. I'm going to repeat that process now with some green cardstock. And this time I did remember to use my anti-static powder tool, so I'm going to go ahead and just add that powder all over the strip of green cardstock. And then I have 2 of the leaves from the InkOn3 Poinsettia Stamp Set. I'm inking them up with my InkOn3 Juicy Watermark Embossing ink, repeatedly, just like I did with the poinsettias. So I'm flipping my cardstock, and then I'm just going to grab my white embossing powder and heat emboss those images. As I was looking at them, I thought that the images looked kind of flat on their own. When I would coat it color, I would add some shading towards the center of these petals and have them kind of lighter towards the edges. So I thought I would kind of recreate that process with some Atelier inks. I started there with the Maryland red and just tried to add a little bit to the center, but the red itself was actually too close to my colored cardstock. So instead I grabbed Twiggy Brown, and that gave me the dimension in the center that I was looking for. Then I just grabbed my ink off cloth and buffed that Atelier ink off of the embossing powder, and I love the result. I decided to do the same thing with my leaves, so I grabbed Goddess Green and started blending towards the bottom of the leaf, but again I found that the green was too close to the color of my cardstock. So I improvised, and I ended up going with Trinity Teal and just adding some using my ink blender brush right towards the bottom of those leaves. And in the end, you can't really tell that I used blue ink to shade these leaves. It matches with the cardstock so well that they just kind of look shaded in a dark, maybe a blue-green color, but it definitely doesn't look like I used a blue ink. Again, I'm going to grab my ink off cloth and just buff away that extra ink, and now I have pretty leaves and flowers. I wanted to add another touch of something special to my images. So I grabbed my metallic watercolors and I watered down some of the gold that I like to use for ink spattering, and I'm just going to spatter that gold ink all over both my leaves and my poinsettias. Here's what they look like all dry. I love that mix of shine from the heat embossing along with those gold spatters. I'm going to grab the coordinating poinsettia die set, and I'll use some purple tape to hold those dies in place as I run them through my die cutting machine and cut out all of these leaves and the flowers. Once I'm all finished, I'm going to have a little tray full of poinsettia flowers and leaves, and I'm going to start arranging these on my card. Remember at the beginning I said I cut and heat embossed more than what I thought I would need, and I had so many left over that I definitely have enough that I could make another card, but I'm glad I did because now I have pieces left over so I can quickly recreate this card. I'm just going around my card and creating a background of these heat embossed poinsettias. I like the look of the die cutting from the various colors of cardstock, but if you wanted to go for a one-layer look, you could definitely stamp these poinsettias, stamp and mask them all across your card. But I'm not very good at masking, and I find that it takes me a long time to do that. So instead, I like to just stamp and die cut a bunch of pieces and then lay them out in the arrangement that I think I want. Once I have them all lined up, I don't want to mess with moving them around. So I grabbed a kitchen tool for my craft room. This is Glad Press and Seal, and I just cut a piece of it large enough to cover my whole card base. And I'm going to press that into those poinsettias and the leaves, and then I'm going to turn this over to the back and slowly peel off my card base. Now, if I had put more poinsettias on there, this may have been a little bit easier, because as it is, the press and seal is definitely sticking to my card base, and it doesn't have a strong grip, but there was enough on there that I didn't want to just rip it off. I didn't want to move those flowers at all. Now that those flowers are stuck onto that press and seal, I'm going to lift up the edges that overlap, and I'm using my liquid adhesive to just squeeze little amounts of glue underneath the pieces that overlap each other. That's going to hold those groups of flowers and leaves together as groupings rather than individual pieces. And then once I'm done with that, I can go ahead and add liquid adhesive behind all of those pieces, and then use those corners of the press and seal kind of like a handle. So you're going to see me in just a second here lay my card base down onto my work surface, pick up all those pieces on the press and seal, and then I'm going to press those down into my card base. Now normally I should have probably given this a little bit more time to dry. Glue takes longer than those 2 seconds to dry, but I'm going to give this a really good press, and then because I'm so impatient, I'm going to go ahead and peel this press and seal back. Now again, this isn't really strong enough to rip your cardstock, but I am going slowly because I didn't give my glue a long time to adhere, so I don't want to shift anything as I'm pulling that off. But look at that, perfect. I only had to arrange everything once on my card, and then I could pick them all up and glue them all down together, keeping my arrangement the way that I wanted it to be. I'm going to use my scissors and just flip my card over, and then from the back I'm just going to trim around the edges, and now I have this fun, pretty background, and it really didn't take long to make. I used a die from my stash, and I cut the sentiment Merry Christmas out of some black cardstock, and then I also cut the shadow die from some vellum. When I cut just the black Merry Christmas die, it just wasn't standing out enough, and so I thought that vellum would really help. I'm going to use some foam tape to adhere that Merry Christmas word on top of my card, and then I'm going to go ahead and grab my liquid pixie dust, which I keep in this paintbrush here, and I'll add that all over that sentiment. So that finishes this card. Thanks so much for watching this video. I have listed and linked all of the products that I used in today's tutorial below in the video description. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon. Bye! Thank you again very much for watching this video. If you liked this video and you'd like to see more from me, please hit that subscribe button that is on the screen now. And here are a few other videos that I thought you might enjoy.